Hello everybody! The goal of this course is to reach a whole perspective of the work inspections we must follow in a construction process in order to get the quality in building. That's the content of the course, but today's topic is going to be focusing partitions, especially in brick walls. First, I would like to remind the diamond circle principles: plan, do, check, act. Start with the planning from the project management, where the mandatory specifications about the materials and the units to execute will be reflected. Also, during the work constructions, we have to check all the activities, and in case to find any damage or any failure, we should report the non-conformity report and join this one with a corrective action or a preventive action that will repair this damage in the future and will prevent also the repetition of this unit in many cases. Then it's time to go in depth to the project details to clarify the final weight, the final position of each room we are going to divide the whole surface of our building. In this picture we can see the rooms where it displaces the final dimensions and also the final weight of our partition wall. It's very relevant to consider if the weight is the final weight of our brick wall, or also we have to include on that the finishings like the mortars, gypsums or ceramic tiles that will be covering our partition walls. In the materials reception, we have to check about the both areas, the mandatory certifications and the voluntary certifications. About the first one, we have to follow the new construction products regulation, where we have to ask about all the certifications of our products and also the certifications from the notified bodies that is going to certify each material. On the other hand, the voluntary certifications will be mandatory in case it is included in our project management and in our quality control plan. Then, if we have all the previous operations, if all the previous units are well done, should be time to go in depth to the construction of the brick walls. But first we have to check all the tests from the structural elements like the concrete test, the reinforcement test, and also if all the activities are finished, the structure and also facades and external walls, before to start with the partitions. In the layout, we are finding the first activity. The chalk marks will be fixed into the surface, the horizontal surface. Maybe it's the structure, maybe it's a thin mortar, or maybe it's the final flooring, the pavement, where we are going to place up to this the brick walls. In all cases, we should fix the chalk marks and we will place the final weight position and also where the internal carpentry is going to be placed. In this picture, we can see how the layout is a real brick row. We have to lay out or stake out our partition wall, just fixing the first line, the first row of bricks. In this picture also we can see the details about where we are finding some structural elements like this reinforced concrete column, and we have to cover this with the brick row. During the stakeout also we have to mind some building services. The building services position should be placed and included in some cases inside to the brick walls we are going to build up. During the stakeout also, in cases we have the pavement before to start with the partitions, we have to remind the positions and protect the surface of this. This terrazzo, this is a cement bricks tiles, are placed before to starting with the stakeout. In this stakeout we are placing the first brick row where the partition will be in future built. During the execution of the main layer, once more we have to fix at the end and the beginning of our wall these steel props that will be fixed into the position where we are going to build up the brick wall. Also, these forms, these steel forms, are going to be tied up with the rope that will join us during the construction of each brick row. The rope are tied up to the forms, are considering each line, each row of bricks we are going to build up. During the execution of the main layer also we have to keep the forms, the rope, and just place the bricks before to start thinking about if we need any kind of isolation on bottom. In this picture we can see this polystyrene that is going to rake the future or possible acoustic or thermal breaches. During the execution of the main layer also, it's mandatory to wet the bricks before to place it on the wall. If we don't wet the bricks, we will not keep the moisturizing of our mortars. In this picture we can see also how all the external areas of the bricks are taking absorption of the wet of our mortar. It will reduce the final resistance and also the final joint of all the pieces who are building up the partition. During the main layer also we have to fix in between the both props the rope which is tied around the prop and fix the quantity of mortar up to the bricks that previously should be wet. If necessary, we have to reinforce our brick wall in some of these rows. Depending on the proportion in between the width and the height of the wall, we will calculate how much reinforcement we need into. In all cases, we should fish it into the middle of each row and just cover it with all the cement mortar as much as we need it. Depending if the layer, the main one, is covering a secondary one or is covering just the fancy, we also have to check about the possible isolations in between the both lines. During the main layer also we can use a more thin reinforcement like this one and just run the whole construction of our brick wall, row by row, following the position of our rope, build it up. In some cases we are going to use special pieces like this big size brick where we are going to place it for this wall. These brick size bricks are very useful, but on the other hand we have to consider the final resistance of this wall. In the joints we can pass all the future building services, but also the connection in between the partition walls and the structural elements has to be covered with an elastic element like a mortar, a gypsum or something more elastic that will help in the future to the movement of the structure and don't crash, prevent the not crash in the wall. This extra press into the wall can damage our partition and also can reduce the final resistance. So we have to protect it and just cover the joint in between the structural elements and the partitions with these elastic mortars. In some cases where the partition is not covering around the structural elements, we have to fix it. But this is a clear not conformity where we don't have all the protection of our column and we have stopped the brick into the both sides of our column. These steel pieces are helping into the mechanical position and it's helping just to the right position to keep it in vertical. But on the other hand, we have to prevent the future cracks of this final finishing that will cover the both elements. After this not conformity, we have to prevent it and just stop the damage. One of the corrective actions is the using of these steel pieces, but on the other hand, we need to prevent it in the future and just make the stakeout in the right position, covering all the steel and reinforced concrete elements. Relevant inspection points are the place where we have some critical situations, like the position where we have some cameras or the position of the building services. Lintels also could be mandatory into the partition walls. Not only for facades or external walls are mandatory. In case we have any kind of internal carpentry or the distance is too big enough, we will use the lintels as resistant pieces that will help up to this, the future brick rows we are building up to this. Some lintels like this one are building up into our brick rows. And also we can use some structural frames where the carpentry are prepared for that. In this picture we can see how this frame is not resistant enough. Only in case they are structurals we can use it as a frame and as a lintel. But if not, we can see the damage where the flexion in this area of the frame are suffering the weight of the brick walls who are up to this. Some lintels are made on place, just fixing into the brick walls we fix it inside the mortar and some rebars that they are creating as lintel on site. This is okay also, but we have to check if the final resistance is enough to the brick wall we are building up to this lintel. Finally, it's time to fix the carpentry, the internal carpentry, and just check if everything is well situated and well placed, if there is no flexion in the lintel and the door is moving into the right position with a lot of freedom. As a final check, we have to review, of course, if we are covering or not the structural elements and what is the corrective action we will do in the future, and if each row is well fixed line by line. In the final check also, we will think about the final positions of the pavement and the flooring, and if everything is well done, it's time to pass our partition unit. Remind, plan, do, check, act, and thank you very much for your attention.